You. Good afternoon. This is House Judiciary Committee. It's 3:15. We have several bills. I'm aware that several of my Republican colleagues are supposed to be at a caucus or something, and I appreciate that they're here. And I'm sure that they will get information, I hope, shortly from that caucus. But let's go ahead and deal with this. So House Bill 209 is Delegate Ampre's bill on the Prison Education Delivery Reform Commission. Did we move the Senate bill? No.
No, I'm sorry, they moved it. I'm sorry.
All right, they moved it. There is an amendment, I believe, that conforms the House bill to the Senate bill.
Yeah, you wanted to move the Senate bill tomorrow.
Oh, we wanted to move the Senate bill tomorrow. Okay, well, that's fine. So this will conform it to what the Senate bill is going to look like tomorrow. And there's a motion and a second on the conforming amendments that you should see. 163527 is the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? All Delegate Eric here.
Yep. What does it do?
The amendments, it adds a representative from the Goucher College Prison Education Partnership, a representative of Maryland Correctional Enterprises. It asks the board to evaluate current workforce programs in which incarcerated individuals participate and the program's effectiveness for training and employment opportunities that results in living wages. And also in the what the commission shall do, it says that they're supposed to advocate for individuals with learning disabilities and those from marginalized communities, and deal with issues related to peer recovery and support services. So basically, it's just filling out the substance of the commission. Any questions? Further questions? Seeing none. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hands. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Anybody against it? All right, the amendment is adopted. We're on the bill as amended. There's a motion for a favorable and a second. All right. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Delegate Schmidt.
I'm looking at the fiscal note. Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the fiscal note, 144,000 year one, 73,800 year two, and then it goes to zero following. Does that just roll under a different department, or how is it handled as it goes through? It looks. Does anybody know how that would work?
I think the fiscal impact, I think, was mitigated. I think they have some money in the budget now to cover the costs of the council. And so this is establishing the commission, and then so the cost will drop after they set up the commission and get it moving. Not sure if that directly addresses your question.
Makes sense. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other Delegate Valentine?
The question I had thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I think, is answered because these are contractual positions. So these positions will go away once the commission is finished. But the only other concern I had at the bottom of that was where the statement in the fiscal note also states that there appears to be duplicative functions with MDL staff that are impacted as well. So are we creating something that is already like there's a duplication of services with this bill with some other function? There's a duplication of services?
The Department of Labor does a lot of the reentry work already. So that's why they're doing some of this work. So they're included in, and it's run together with both them and DPSCS because it kind of helps with the overlap. There is some overlapping responsibilities. I don't think it necessarily duplicates, but it overlaps from with what each one of those groups does. Seeing no further questions, the Vice Chair.
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield. Yes. Carden. Yes. Embry. Yes. Pasteur. Yes. Tolles. Yes. Schmidt. Yes. Simmons. Oh, he's not here. Sorry. Boucher. Yes. Phillips. Yes, Roberson? Yes, Tomlinson? Yes, Erican? No. Taylor? Yes, Simpson? Yes, Grammer? Yes, Moon?
Yes.
Yes, Valentine?
Yes.
Yes, Conaway?
Me too.
You can do that.
Yes.
So Conaway with the Me Too, Kaufman?
Yes, me too.
Yes, and a Me Too, Williams?
Sure, yes.
Yes, and a Me Too. Anybody else really quickly? Embry? Phillips? Taylor?
Go ahead,
Se-
guys.
Seeing none others. All right, motion is adopted. We'll go on now to our good friend, facial recognition. Our bestest friend. I think there are amendments, I believe. Yes, it comes back to visit consistently. All right, so Delegate Moon, do you want to talk about what the amendments do? This is 693529.
They make it the same as ours.
All right, so it's conforming to the House bill. And then we're sending it back to the Senate. Any discussion? There's a motion on the moved for the amendments. Is there a second? And a second. All right. So all in favor of, well, discussion on whether to conform to the Senate? Seeing none, all in favor of the conforming amendments, raise your hands. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18. 18. All right. I don't know. Oh, Delegate Conway has created an upside down Me Too sign. Anybody opposed to the conforming amendments? Seeing none, they're adopted. We're on the bill as amended for Senate Bill 182, again conforming to the House bill. Any questions? Seeing none, the Vice Chair. Oh, sorry, Delegate Taylor.
Was there any, thank you, Mr. Chair, was there any discussion with regard to facial recognition technology and improvements in the technology that helps differentiate one Black person from another?
Yeah, I mean, think in some ways, the whole point of the bill is from those concerns. The bill puts guardrails on the technology, makes it so that it can't be the sole basis for criminal charges, can't be used as evidence, things like this.
Okay,
I did, like, to be candid, people wanted more. A lot of the advocates wanted more. I personally wanted more, but we put this set of framework in place because right now there are no rules. And so the departments can do it whatever they want, and they are. So I think it's a good start, and it was motivated by some of those concerns. And I know the advocates are going to be looking at what we do here for years with additional improvements, but I think it's a good start.
thank you.
All right, we're on the bill as amended. I think we had a motion in a second. Seeing no further discussion, the Vice Chair.
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield.
Yes.
Yes. Cardin.
Yes.
Yes. Embry.
Yes.
Yes. Pasteur.
Yes.
Yes. Tolles. Yes. Schmidt. Yes. Simmons. Boucher. Yes. Phillips. Yes. Roberson. Yes. Tomlinson. Yes. Erican. Yes. Taylor. Yes. Simpson. Yes. Grammer. Yes. Moon. Yes. Valentine. Yes. Conaway. The Senate bill. It conforms it to the House bill that we passed earlier this year. Yes. Kaufman.
Yes.
Yes. Williams. Yes. Motion's adopted. Okay, not sure we're ready with 468 actually, because just not sure that we're ready with 468 actually, because I don't know. There are amendments. I think we needed an amendment on 468, so I'm going to hold on to that one. We'll go to 551, Senator Sidnor's bill, which is cross-file for Delegate Kaufman's House Bill 801. There are amendments.
Second.
Amendments are moved and they're not, I was going to say, I didn't think there were amendments. There are no amendments. So this is clean. We're not going to move any amendments that don't exist. There's a favorable motion on the bill and a second. Now we got to the right part of our hymnal here, and is there further discussion on Senate Bill 551? Seeing none, the vice chair.
Yes.
Crutchfield?
Yes.
Yes. Carden? Yes. Embry? Yes. Pasteur? Yes. Tolles? Yes. Schmidt? Yes. Boucher? Yes. Phillips? Yes. Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? No. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? No. Moon? Yes. Valentine? No. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman?
Yes.
Yes. Williams? Yes. I know there's been some discussion about trying to find homes for different bills or I'm not sure that the amendments are completely ready for Senate Bill 858 either. So we're gonna hold on to that one for now. And I think 1097 still is under construction a little bit, so we're gonna come back to that one a little later. Now we'll go to House Bill 947, and there are amendments to House Bill 947. That could be a little bit different probably. This is 533721. The amendments, as I understand them, and I know a couple of them in part, and I know that Delegate Phillips can talk about them in their other part, and I sense that I maybe need to give him a second to make sure that he's pulling it up on his computer, and if I talk long enough, I can get there.
I'm good. I think I can talk to him anyway.
All right, that's fine, but in the one thing that is different from the Senate bill that has come over is that it would grant the city solicitor in Baltimore City and the county offices of law in the different 23 other jurisdictions. It would grant them the ability to bring one of these suits as well, but it does not otherwise create a private right of action.
Correct.
All right?
You said it well.
Well, that's fine, but it does, the amendments do other things too, and they're
So-
amendments that change your House bill from
Yes.
to what the Senate bill otherwise looks like. So Delegate Phillips.
Yes. The amendments would conform the original House bill to the Senate bill that passed, which removed the private right of action. It addressed, oh gosh, I really do need that piece of paper. Tracing, it removed trace data, and that was it. The amendments, as the chair would say, would add the 23 jurisdictions and Baltimore City, allowing them a right of action against the PLACA participants.
All right, could I have a motion on the amendments? So this is on 533721, just be. And okay, so now we're on the amendments. Delegate Williams.
Would you say?
Yes, sorry, Delegate Phillips, I appreciate all of your hard work on this. I might even be a co-sponsor of this bill. Quick question, why was the trace data information removed?
I know that there was a great deal of discussion about the trace data, the ability to manage the trace data. There was some pushback from parties about the trace data. And to be quite honest, in the effort to move this through, there was an agreement to remove trace data.
I wish it was still in there, but
So do I.
I guess I'll still support the bill.
Thank you.
Okay, thank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Phillips and I had a really long discussion on this, and I appreciate you taking the time with me on it today. The 23 jurisdictions. So
24 in total.
24 total. In Prince George's County, who is that person or what is that office that can bring these suits?
That would be your county attorney,
Your county attorney. And is that
the
same-
individual that handles generally the civil matters associated with county government.
Got it. And do all counties have that same level of
All
personnel.
counties have that person or someone similar.
Got it.
So that the ability to bring suit would rest in the county government.
Great, thank you.
There are further questions about this amendment? All right, seeing none and anticipating that there's probably going to be, it's not going to be unanimous this time. All in favor of amendment 533721, please raise your hand. I see one, Crutchfield, Cardin, Embry, Pasteur, Tolles, Phillips, Roberson, Taylor, Simpson, Moon. Or I don't know that I see Moon. Are you, I'm sorry, now I do. Conaway, Kaufman, and Williams, which I believe is 14. All those opposed? I see Schmidt, Boucher, Tomlinson, Erican, Grammer, and Valentine. The amendment 533721 is adopted. We have other amendments, however, that are being brought forward. And what's your pleasure? There's two from Delegate Tomlinson, one from Delegate Valentine. Do you care which order you go in? But one does two and one does one. I don't care. Who wants to go first? Delegate Valentine, would you like to go first?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to ask if there would be possible to hold this for today, to use my hold. I know we have gotten some back. I don't know if there's any others that are forthcoming from a few other members, and I was going to ask if that could be done today.
I'm happy. Look, I'm not sure I'm happy, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm ever happy. Just ask anyone. Seems very sad. That's very sad. All right, I'm gonna stop being Debbie Downer for a second. I would be okay with that, but I want to make it clear that if there are other amendments coming, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back after the second session tonight. We're gonna come back and do a voting session on this on this legislation. So if you've got other amendments, they've got to be like now at the amendment office to get back. This is part of the reason that I gave fair warning yesterday that this was going to be coming up. So if you've got other amendments that are coming, I'm going to hold it. We're going to come back after the second session, which is going to begin at 4 o'clock. I'm not sure when it will end. My hope is that it'll end about 6, and then we can go from there. So I will hold on to these three for now. And by yes.
Do not have any others coming.
All right, so would you like to go forward right now then? And-
Yes.
All right, then we
Yes.
will do that. And since so then we're gonna do Delegate Valentine's first then. His is. All right. People cannot see on the video that Delegate Simmons has come in dressed to go for a wedding or something after this, or I'm not sure. All right, that's fine. Delegate Valentine, your amendment's 833921.
Yes.
And if you would tell us what the amendment does, please.
My amendment simply strikes language on page 3, lines 26 through 29 in its entirety. And I believe the intent, as I've discussed with some of the stakeholders, were the reasonableness of the reasonable controls regarding the sale, manufacture, et cetera, and to eliminate what is simply defined what is reasonable is how it was explained to me when I was asked to present this amendment.
So you would
Strike the paragraph.
strike the language that reads as follows: a firearm industry member shall establish and implement reasonable controls regarding the sale, manufacture, distribution, importation, marketing, possession, and use of the firearm industry member's firearm-related products.
The reasoning behind it was the definition of reasonable, the broadness of that terminology.
All right. You're moving the amendment?
I move the amendment.
Is there a second? There is a second. Discussion on the amendment. Delegate Cardin.
To the maker of the amendment. So a firearm industry member shall not establish, shall not have, or implement reasonable controls regarding the sale and manufacture? Is that what you're suggesting? That we should not implement reasonable controls regarding the sale, manufacture, distribution, importation, marketing, possession, and use of firearms?
The way that I wanted to kind of portray or explain this is the paragraph above, which says may not knowingly maintain, contribute, and harm the public through the sale, manufacture. I believe some of these have been implemented in previous legislation where, for example, a firearm dealer, I believe a few years ago, and I do not have the bill in front of me, where we implemented such things as it's at a gun shop, like surveillance, different types of security measures and things like that. So I think a lot of these things are already being done.
Right. Okay. So why shouldn't then they be required to implement reasonable controls regarding the sale, manufacturing, distribution? They should be. Right? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what.
I think the term reasonable was one of the.
So you just think that we need to define reasonable?
Define reasonable.
Fair enough. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Reasonable is a concept within the law, within tort law, within civil law. It is basically a concept that says various areas of the law, which says that it requires the individual to use reasonable methods to determine. I mean, it becomes a trier of fact to determine whether or not what they did was reasonable. And under most conditions, if you're in an industry, whether it's the car industry, whether it's the gun industry, whether it's the, making bicycles, there is a reasonable standard. So it's a basic, simple, civil policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what this amendment is actually attempting to do is to put us back in line with federal law. So if we do not adopt this amendment, we're going to be in direct violation of the PLACA. So we can pass this bill. We pass unconstitutional stuff all the time. It's like kind of the thing we do sometimes, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense since it's going to get struck down, since it's a violation of federal law. So that law was literally created to prevent people, states from suing manufacturers into oblivion, like through economic warfare. Let's get rid of guns by economic warfare. That's the entire purpose behind what Congress did. So we can do whatever we want here and it can fall in court. We love to put things in court, but we also have an opportunity with this amendment and probably with some of the other ones to actually put it in line with PLACA so that it doesn't get tied up in court and make us look silly. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I like to talk this right into the record. In the bill hearing, I questioned the Attorney General about what crimes he's looking to get at. And he said straight up, murder. So you're trying to make a third party accountable for a crime that they had absolutely nothing to deal with. And that is directly in violation of PLACA. So what my question is actually for the bill sponsor. You drafted this bill. You could have defined what reasonable is. Why don't you tell us why you chose not to define it and maybe what your thoughts about the definition is? Not general civil, but what your intention for reasonable is in this bill.
Sure. So I know there are a number of thoughts about what this will get at, but I'll give you one example, right, which I think is relevant to our conversation. The city of Chicago sues a seller, right, a gun shop. They're able to trace this gun shop has been engaged, or they can trace 800 different crimes of guns that were used that were sold by the same gun shop. 40 different federal actions which can be traced to the same gun shop. That is a bad actor. In my mind, what that gun shop did was unreasonable. And I would think that most juries would suggest that was unreasonable, that this one gun shop happened to be involved in 850 different crimes. So to me, the language, we can define it or not define it. I think the courts will define it ultimately as to what is and what was not reasonable. And I don't see the Attorney General bringing frivolous cases because it makes no sense to bring a frivolous case.
Yeah, and my challenge to that is, you know, how would the general person define unreasonable? We have background checks, we have waiting lists, we have can't purchase a certain amount of guns in certain days. Like statutorily, there are hundreds of laws governing what reasonable is. And if we're using the fact that one company in a different state could be traced to all these crimes, the more accurate way to say this is that company violated probably hundreds of laws. And what we're using, we're taking is that example to write into statute in our state language that is so vague. You're putting this statute in place, and then that could be grounds to make the case for who knows what. So this is what this committee does. We really drill down on specific language like this. We have chosen to leave the term unreasonable defined whatsoever. And I think, consider using this and adding that to some of the discussions from the Attorney General and others, where they clearly want to make third-party crimes the problem of people that in industry groups that have nothing to do with this. I think respectfully, I think moving this bill without defining this term is really the crux of the problem. And that's why I'll be supporting this amendment.
This is the argument all the ways. What is reasonable? And I agree with Delegate Grammer that we put this in a lot of bills. Why? Because that is the standard of the way things work in our nation. So what we do is we, as Delegate Phillips said, we have determined in civil law that the use of the term reasonable, actually in law, the use of the term reasonable is a standard that is set by the particular industry or the act. So for instance, if you're in a car and you're driving and you maybe run a red light and nobody sees you, so you get away with it, right? But when you harm someone, then we're going to look at whether or not the action that you took was reasonable. Do drivers usually does everybody get to run a red light? And that's a little bit different because it's a criminal aspect to it, but just work with my hypothetical for a second here. Or if you were weaving in the road, or if you're texting, or if the point is that we have to use the standard of what other people do who are put in that like circumstance. And I can tell you to anyone who has ever gone to law school, who has to look at this stuff on a regular basis and read these cases, the reasonable man standard, and it is called the reasonable man standard, that is what we have used forever. We use it for children, we use it for adults, we use it for elderly people. It is the standard. It is not the standard that the Judiciary Committee created. It is the standard of law. But keep in mind too that we're not the only ones who make law. We have a judicial system as well. Case law uses the term reasonable, and the reason why we have it is because everybody understands it. Does every layman understand it? Maybe not. But there's not very many laymen who will take the code or even know how to go and get the code and read the code. That is not the standard that we can use to create legislation. I cannot use the standard on whether or not a regular person walking down the street is going to understand the statute. So the standard of reasonableness is not new. It has not been changed. It is used in courts, and it is used in legislatures throughout the nation and federal. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I hear what the sponsor's saying and what the intent behind it is, and you know, the reference to Chicago. Chicago has like 2.5 million people living in it. We don't even know how many gun shops there are in Chicago. I bet there's very few. And there's a huge problem with gang crimes. So what we're actually talking about is very likely, let's throw out a scenario where only this law might apply, but all the other criminal laws might not apply. We have a gang, they get people who aren't prohibited persons to go to a gun shop and make straw purchases. The shop does their due diligence, they run the background checks as required, they do what is required by the laws of the state of Illinois, just as our gun shops do by Maryland state law. Guns will still get into the market. There is a black market for gun ownership. It exists. We are never getting rid of it. The more we tighten strings, the bigger the market gets. So the gun shop with 800 crimes associated with it, and who knows over how many years that could have been, has done likely everything that they could to prevent it from occurring. But because of the incredible pressure of the black market, this is a supply and demand situation. They will find people who are not prohibited persons to buy guns for them because they need guns to survive, to protect their product, to be alive the next morning. We're not fixing supply and demand with any of these laws. We're not doing that. What we're doing is telling a guy who's doing the best he can in a really tough spot in the city of Chicago, you can't be open here because bad people are going to come try and get your guns and you're going to do the best you can and you're still going to fail. So you should close down so that all the other good people of your city who are scared every day because of the high crime can't have access to firearms easily anymore. That's what this bill is actually going to do. It's not going to save any lives. I hate it, but it's not. I want to save lives just like everybody in here. It disgusts me that people are still losing their lives over gun crimes and all kinds of crimes. It's horrible. But the policies we keep pushing through this legislature for the last 6 years I've been down here are not doing that. We are not saving lives with this. You may be able to close down some gun shops through, you know, what I would consider very frivolous lawsuits by suing them for third-party crime. But you're not stopping the hemorrhaging. You're not. There's only one way to stop the hemorrhaging, and it is not a gun law. It is by enforcing the current criminal laws that we have on the books. It is making people go to prison the first time they kill someone and not letting them back out. And I know we don't like to say it, but it involves people getting charged with felonies and going to jail. That is the only way. I'm sorry, but it's true. So that's why so many of us get so tired of fighting against these kind of bills because they're not effective. You're going after the people that are doing their best. That's what we're doing. And this law, it's not going to go into effect because it's going to violate federal law. So it's at best a virtue signal and it's not going to help people, but it is going to hurt some business owners probably until we get it tied up. So I'm still going to be green on the amendment and red on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to respond briefly to the Vice Chair talking about standards. So I have a little thing I'd like to read here. Laws are legal absolutes used by the courts and law enforcement to determine when a person is committed an illegal act. Those who break the law may be charged. Standards don't carry the same weight as laws. They're legal definitions, but they're more ambiguous than laws. They're general guidelines, and depending on the circumstances and parties involved, they're subject to interpretation. You'll frequently find standards used in case law because you can't just write statute to govern every single little circumstance, the millions and millions of cases that we're going to encounter and hope to have a statute that governs every single activity. And that's where these standards tend to come into play. Just wanted to point out what we're doing is we're taking that idea of a standard and we're writing that into statute. Statute is a law. We're supposed to be specific and clearly defined, and we're taking this vague idea of a standard and codifying that. And the intention of these bills, when Delegate Archon used the term economic warfare, like that's really it, because you're creating a standard of standing here to litigate on a vague idea of reasonableness. And that's really the violation of PLACA. That's really the problem with this bill. That's what this amendment is trying to get at, is we're lawmakers here sitting looking at this bill. We can't really define what this term is. And look, it tried, as drafted, I believe the bill tried to give legal standing to every single person in the state. And we've changed that. I get that. But this is so broad that I really believe this amendment helps deal with that issue. And again, that's why I'll be a yes.
Thank you very much. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. I see Delegate Schmidt, Boucher, Tomlinson. I'm sorry, Pasteur, Schmidt, Boucher, Tomlinson, Erican, Grammer, Valentine for 7. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Bartlett, Crutchfield, Carden, Embry, Tolles, Simmons, Phillips, Robertson, Simpson, Moon, Conaway, Kaufman, and Williams. And that counts, I think, as 13. The amendment is not adopted. We're on the next amendment from Delegate Tomlinson now. Delegate Tomlinson, we'll start with, well, what's your pleasure? Which one?
Start
In 222 or 528?
528, please.
528, 203, 528. Striking language on page 3, line 20. Striking the comma, substituting or, and in line 21, it basically, I think, strikes a word. Is that correct?
Correct. Contribute.
Contributes. So under his amendment, the language would read, a firearm industry member may not knowingly create or maintain well, actually, why don't you tell me what it would mean? Because that's the way I'm reading it, and I think there's another extra 2 in there, but go ahead, Delegate Tomlinson.
Thank you. Yeah, so the goal of this amendment is to remove the word contribute because I am having a hard time trying to understand how we would define contribute, and I'm just thinking you could have an example where a gun dealer, a person walks in who is not allowed to buy a firearm, goes into a gun store. The dealer does not do his job, does not do the background check. The guy buys a gun. He wasn't supposed to have a gun. He goes out and he kills somebody, kills multiple people. That I would probably say is a good example of they directly contributed that they directly can. I would say that that's a good example of how they probably directly contributed to the crime.
I know, he needs to just, they know he's gonna be late.
Versus another example where, let's say a guy is driving down the road and he sees a billboard that is simply advertising it's an advertisement saying, hey, exit 55, here's the gun store. And the guy later, the guy goes to the gun store, buys a gun legally, and then goes out and kills somebody. And then in court, he says, well, I was inspired because I was on the road and I saw the sign at the exit and I went off and I got the gun. So is that an example of contributing to this individual going out and committing a crime with the firearm? I don't know what contribute exactly means. So that is why I'm trying to remove that word from the bill.
All right, is there a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable.
Motion for a favorable and a second. Any further discussion on the amendment? Delegate Grammer.
Wanted to briefly say that the way this is currently structured, contribute fails to the proximate causation requirement of PLACA, and that's why I'll be supporting it today.
Chair would ask the committee to oppose the amendment. And seeing no further comments, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Schmidt, Boucher, Tomlinson, Erican, Grammer, and Valentine. All those opposed to the amendment. Delegates Bartlett, Crutchfield, Carden, Embry, Pasteur, Tolles, Simmons, Phillips, Taylor, Simpson, Moon, Conaway, Kaufman, and Williams. The amendment is not agreed to. We have amendment ending in 222, which goes to line 23 on page 3. And it's not the same. Let me see. I'm sorry, right. So it strikes lines strikes after is, insert unlawful. And then strikes unreasonable under the totality of the circumstances. So in other words, it only would cover activity that was unlawful and not unreasonable. And so I feel like we're back to the reasonable debate. Delegate Tom, let's do this. Is there a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable.
All right, there's a motion in the second. I got it. Delegate Tomlinson for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so what this amendment does is it keeps unlawful on there, but it's removing the second point, which is unreasonable, which I know we just had a long conversation about that. Unreasonable under the totality of the circumstances. Obviously, totality of the circumstances is a legal term. It is it's allowing a balanced approach instead of a strict approach, which I think is my concern about this. It's kind of broad, kind of vague, and it's a high threshold to meet. And I know that Delegate Erican and Grammer already spoke a lot about PLACA and how this bill flies in the face of PLACA directly. And I think this amendment will just a little bit probably help with making the legislation fall more in line with PLACA, so that we're not violating federal law.
All right. There was a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Delegate Erican?
Thanks. I'll just make one more plug for why we shouldn't waste our state's resources litigating these kind of things. We heard in the testimony, for anybody who wasn't here, that there are 7, maybe 8 states who have done something similar, passed bills that violate PLACA. None of those laws have been fully litigated. They are all tied up in court still. So we don't have any evidence that these laws survive. We don't have that. So we're going to be just another state. I'm going to try and find a nice way to say this. Doing something silly. Well, everybody else is doing it. And then what's going to happen is one of those cases is going to trickle down to SCOTUS. And we're all going to have egg on our face, because why didn't we just wait to see what happened, to see if any of these states' laws stand? I don't think they will. A lot of people that are much smarter than I am don't think they will. And it does get kind of old in Maryland, constantly spending our state's resources litigating stuff that is already in the process of being litigated in other states. Let those states' taxpayers pay for that kind of stuff. Why are we paying for it? It doesn't make any logical sense. So this is obviously a good amendment. It would save us from the litigation.
Chair would ask the committee to resist the amendment, and seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegate Schmidt. Delegate Schmidt, Boucher, you're sure? Delegate Phillips, you're sure, right? All right, there's Schmidt, Boucher, Tomlinson, Erican, Grammer, and Valentine. All those in favor, opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Bartlett, Crutchfield, Cardin, Embry, Pasture, Tolles, Simmons, Phillips, Roberson, Taylor, Simpson, Moon, Conaway, Kaufman, and Williams. The amendment is not adopted. We are now on the bill as amended. Is there a motion on the bill as amended? Motion for a favorable and a second? All right, motion for a favorable and a second?
Associated with the jurisdictions.
Yes,
Is that-
we did that first.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Is there further discussion on the bill? Delegate Grammer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to read one final comment into the record again. When we spoke with the Attorney General and when he spoke in favor of this bill, he clearly said that the intent is we're looking to make these industry partners liable for crimes up to and including murder. And I think that clearly demonstrates the unreasonability of the bill. I mean, they're saying it openly at this point, what they're trying to do. I think that clearly flies in the face of PLACA. I think this will clearly be held as unconstitutional, and that's why I'll be a no today.
Delegate Cardin, then Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just say that if this bill, if we pass this bill and it saves even one person's life because it puts people under notice that they are going to be liable for unlawful or unreasonable under the totality of circumstances types of activity. And even if we do that over the next few years while litigation is going on, I am thrilled to be able to be supporting this bill.
Delegate Phillips.
So I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this bill. And I want to say that I have no issue with persons who participate in the gun industry, who do it in a lawful, considerate way, using reasonable thought in the distribution, the sale, the manufacture of firearms. We have a country that allows firearm sales. So that's not my objective as the sponsor. My objective as the sponsor is to provide an avenue to take care of bad actors. And there are bad actors. I mentioned one example, there are others. And so we want to take bad actors out of the industry. And I would think that the industry would want to take bad actors out of the industry. So thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on the bill, we'll roll call the vote. Vice Chair.
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield. Yes. Cardin. Yes. Embry. Yes. Pasteur. Yes. Tolles. Yes. Schmidt. You can explain your vote.
No one explain my vote.
No
Sorry
one
about that.
explain
No
your
one
vote.
explain my vote. I do agree with you, bill sponsor, on the bad actors, and I do support that. There are some pieces of the bill that make sense. There are just some that I think I struggle with. So I am a no. Thank you.
Delegate Simmons. Yes. Boucher. No. Phillips. Yes. Roberson. Yes. Tomlinson. No. Erican. No. Taylor. Yes. Simpson. Yes. Grammer. No. Moon. Yes, and an add. Valentine. No. Conaway. Yes, and an add. Kaufman. Yes. Williams. Yes. All right. 1 second, please. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With 15 votes, the motion is adopted. The favorable motion is adopted. We are going to stop here because the bells have been ringing. You have until 4:15 to get across the street. However, I wanted to let committee members know Delegate Moon is going to have Senate Bill 182. Delegate Kaufman on Senate Bill 551. Delegate Phillips, obviously, on 947. We will come back after this evening's session to review 2 sets of bills. One set related to Delegate Toll's bill on child support and driver's licenses. The other on Delegate Simpson's bill related to child support and driver's licenses. We will not be voting. We will only be discussing. Thank you very much.